Welcome to the hotline for today, Thursday, the 19th January 2023. We're happy to have you. We know you have choices. We're very happy when you come here. And we thank you that you always find reasons to stay. Today is going to be particularly interesting, and we're going to get down to some microscopic details on a matter of tremendous national and international interest. This is the hotline. It is quite difficult to think of many other things at the moment outside of the big news, which is now 8 days old and which is in front of us. This concerning perhaps the largest heist in Jamaica's security dealership history. The story is so concerning in so many aspects, and the spin-offs of the story are of such magnitude that I think if we don't take the time to dissect each and every individual portion, understand each and every individual portion, and then put it all in the whole, then we're going to miss some crucial aspects of the story. This country has boasted over many years the performance of certainly the Jamaica Stock Exchange has done extremely well. A number of companies have come up, start up, and have listed, and we have been in the mold of wealth creation for a long time. But wealth creation has taken on magnified proportions in recent times. A lot of people are now understanding some more that you cannot build wealth by saving in a savings account in a traditional bank, because the interest given by banks vis-a-vis inflation and with the fees that are extracted for transactions as we know it, invariably, if you put money into a bank and you do nothing with the money, if you go back for the money 5-10 years later, the money is going to be less than what you deposited the 5 years before, because of the inflationary effects on the account vis-a-vis the rate of interest that is given. So it is in all of our interests, if we wish to expand the various sectors of the country, that we not only understand but we communicate to others a better understanding as to how wealth is built. And so these security dealerships such as Stocks and Securities Limited and the myriad of others out there, it is important to all of us that the way they function is in such a way that whilst we appreciate the risks attached to investing, we have to also be assured that outside of the risks attached to investing, and each investor is assigned a risk profile, so you know whether you are risk averse, whether you have some moderate appetite for risk, or whether you cannot afford to lose your money depending on your age and your ability to start over. You have to make your investment decisions with your eyes wide open, understanding your own risk appetite. And also, the environment outside of the risk appetite and our knowledge based on the risk appetite that we can lose investment if the market conditions change substantially. We must have an environment of regulation where these security dealerships are compelled to have fraud insurance, crime insurance, negligence insurance of such quantum that must be equal to or near equal to the investment money that they are taking from the investor. Especially in an era where we know that online fraud, scamming, all sorts of isms come in now, and where we also know that 2-foot puss are all over institutions, where we know that people can be negligent, where we know that people can disregard whatever directives are given. Entities granted licenses to operate within the space of security dealership must be mandated to have fraud, crime, negligence, and is not only just to have these insurance policies for the sake of having them, but the level of the insurance must be equal to or be near equal to the investment sums that people are putting in. In a country where I get so many calls every day from a lot of people who in their earlier lives they don't get to contribute a lot to pension, and the education around pension schemes, private pension, was not as good back in the days as it is now. And we encourage people, start saving your pension from your first paycheck. We cannot have a system where when people do as we've asked them to do, so they won't be a burden on the state, the regulatory regime is not in place. So in the event there is fraud, in the event there is negligence, in the event there is breach of statutory duty on the part of an entity, a person who is approaching pension age, or somebody who in their youth used the better part of their lives to make whatever money they can. We cannot turn around and tell them that this entity is failing or it has failed because of fraud committed by some errant employee or former employee, or because of absence of procedures within the business, and you cannot get anything back. It cannot happen. So those are my general comments on how things should be, how I expect things to be. If not, the system that we boast, the wealth creation that we are encouraging, the collateral damage on the system is going to be such that it is going to be irreparable for the foreseeable future. And it is no good for anybody to come and tell us that situations like this SSL heist, with the allegations that we're hearing that it is one-off. Don't tell me. Show me. Not interested in the words show. Don't tell. So where are we now? We're at a point where when I check the electronic space and search for the directors and for some information on this entity SSL, I was told yesterday on the internet that the page is no longer available for information on the individuals behind SSL. Stocks and Securities Limited, their directors and other information, it was no longer present on a page. And I got the words, oops, that page can't be found. So we cannot get any answers directly from SSL at the moment. Apart from that information, they have directed us to the Financial Services Commission. And they direct us to the Financial Services Commission for answers relating to urgent matters, because they say that the FSC is now in control. The FSC, when it came to the press conference yesterday, was not able to give us much. In fact, the face of the FSC, the sound of the FSC, the whole broadcast of the FSC has left us with confidence dampened, which is exactly what I would imagine they never wish to have happen. So specifically in relation to this matter, I have to ask some questions. They may be rhetorical, but I have to ask them. And I'm going to spend some time during the course of this program because Jovan Johnson has been writing some interesting pieces. There was one that started on Sunday, which spoke of some entities and connections with SSL, which connections demand further investigations. But here now we have this SSL. We understand that there's a woman, and you'll get some more information about her. We understand that she confessed, quote unquote, to Usain Bolt that she had taken a particular course of action. And as a result of that, some inquiries were made by Mr. Bolt. We learned from Mr. Bolt's lawyer that up to October of last year, he received some statement from the entity which purports that he had over 12 million US in the entity. And there's this document that is being circulated without being redacted. The woman's address is there. The people who are alleged to have been investors in this entity and whose accounts are said to have been pillared based on this alleged confession. It is all out there. But for some reason, we don't see Usain Bolt's name on the paper. So I've been forced to ask myself in relation to Usain Bolt, completely recognizing that this matter is not about Usain Bolt. It's about the operations of SSL within the context of a system that is supposed to be highly regulated by the Financial Services Commission, and how things have fallen through gaping holes. But I would love to find out, certainly as a start, in relation to Bolt because of the alleged quantum, but the answers would apply to everybody else. In relation to Bolt, in what form was this money invested in SSL or lodged with SSL? In other words, was there a check that was written out at some point in time? And if so, what's the quantum? Who was the payee on the check? Was it made out to SSL with instructions given for it to be deposited into whatever? Or was it made out to Bolt with instructions on the back for SSL to do some things with it? Or was it made out to a holding company? Or was it made out to this woman in this woman's name? Who was the payee on this check if it is check? And it has to be checked because the quantum of money that we're hearing about, certainly based on our laws, you cannot do business in cash over a certain level. Even though the law came into effect sometime after, I understand, the engagement commenced with this entity. And I would also love to find out whether this entity, if this lady, as it is alleged, whether if she collected this money for investing for Bolt or the other people, what are the accounting requirements within SSL itself such that somebody who puts themselves out as an agent of the entity and who is said to be doing business for the entity, do they not have internal processes where they need to see exactly what it is that the person is bringing in, from whom, and their accounting process, catching and accounting for what is received by the agent of the entity? It strikes me as really odd that on this particular document that is being circulated and said to be some sort of a confession signed by a JP, that there's no company, no holding company that is listed on it. Every single name appears to be individual, and Usain Bolt's name is not on that paper. And I would love to find out from the chief executive officer of SSL for 10 years ago and continuing, whether you knew you had Bolt's money investing, either Bolt as the individual or Bolt with some holding company. Yeah? And if you did, Why is it taking so long, it appears, for disclosures, appropriate disclosures to be made to the fraud squad, to the Financial Investigation Division, so that there can be some corroboration of what this woman is alleged to have said, or the portions of it that don't seem to accord with the internal accounting, that those portions can be rubbished. Because I have to ask myself, since the story broke, what is the reason for the delay in the question and answer with the lady? What is the reason for the delay in charging the lady for some sort of financial crime? And it appears to me that the reason for the delay is all they have at the moment is the mere say-so or the mere alleged say-so of this person. But they don't appear to be able to find any documentary evidence from the company itself to either prove or disprove what the lady is alleged to have said, which goes back now to the oversight of the Financial Services Commission and the role of any internal auditor that an entity such as this should have. Because if the impression that we're getting about the state of the paperwork in the entity actually is what the impression is, then I do not see how it could really have been functioning all of these years within the regulated regime that I understand that we have. So there are questions for a lot of individuals at SSL. There are questions for oversight at FSC. And there are other questions too arising from what didn't come at the press conference. And there are a lot of issues that the Gleaner in particular, from my reading of some of the story, there are some issues that they're putting up which strike me to be of particular interest. And there are questions too for the finance minister about whether any report was made to either this finance minister. In fact, I think in 2016, when the audit report, as the Gleaner reported, was done, the concerns were raised by FSC against SSL. I don't think it was Nigel Clark who was the minister at the time. When the JLP won that election, I think it was Audley Shaw. And then after Nigel Clark was given a seat and that by-election held, he then became the minister. But as far as I'm concerned, it is a continuing ministry. So we need to know from the minister, one, is he comfortable with the oversight of the entity? And two, he needs to conduct a check in the ministry to see whether any concerns were raised with him or the minister before him about the concerns FSC had about SSL. And if there were no concerns raised, we need to go back to FSC to ask, though under the law it is not a mandatory provision for them to report to the minister, we need to find out why they didn't exercise their discretion to make a report to the minister in the face of what they said were gross and recurring acts of non-compliance, it appears. But I think the last thing we need to do is to lump all of these issues in one. For my part, I like to take each just on its own merit, one at a time. Work it through, look at the link with the next thing, and see exactly where do things fall. So during the course of this program, I'm going to go to some of the articles in the Sunday Gleaner And there are some issues concerning internal disciplinary proceedings that I understand were commenced and concluded against the employee who is alleged to have confessed. And there was the taking on of a private investigator, to my understanding, by SSL, which all of that, it strikes me as odd, but during the process of the documents I will read, then as the questions arise, I will ask them aloud. So stay with us on the hotline. Thank you, listeners. It's reading day. Hold on the calls for me. It's time to listen. Time to listen. There's a story in the Gleaner. Sunday. Let me start there, so, because sometimes some things not so. This is what Jovan wrote Sunday. Law enforcement eyes are on at least another former executive of Stocks and Securities Limited over the billion-dollar fraud which impacted several clients, including sports legend Usain Bolt. Yet others are reportedly on the radar of investigators. Situation has also thrust into the spotlight the oversight of FSC of a securities industry that earned a medium risk ranking for money laundering in the 2021 National Risk Assessment Report. Medium risk ranking. It said a medium ranking means that while there is robust anti-money laundering framework in the sector, there are, however, some deficiencies in staffing at the competent authority and in terms of compliance frameworks for small securities firms. 3 days, he said, this is now Sunday, I think we are now much more than that. We're 8 days from my count. 3 days after news emerged that more than $10 million was missing from the accounts of more than 20 high-value clients, investigators are yet to give any further information as they try to untangle the fraud and ascertain the total sums involved. A wealth advisor who was fired last week, we're going to go to those documents soon, is yet to be questioned in the matter being investigated by the police fraud squad, the FID and the FSC. And there's a quote there from an investigator saying the investigation is still alive, were the only words from the police unit yesterday, which declined to confirm further whether any current or former employee was linked to this sophisticated operation. A former senior official was reportedly questioned by private investigators. Now you tell me, private investigators? We'll come back to that. Stick a pin, write down private investigators. But strongly denied any involvement in the scheme that went on for more than a year. An investigator said the complexity of the scheme included the bypassing of controls through forgery, manipulation of SSL's IT systems and email addresses, and interception of disbursements for accounts in commercial banks. A single individual could not have done this. The skill set and knowledge required were immense, the official, who was not authorized to speak, told the Sunday Gleaner. Listen to this part now. The former employee was under investigation since August of 2022. The woman was reportedly sent on leave in September over the discovery of non-cash discrepancies linked to information sent to clients. So I want to just pause here, because what the SSL has told us is that it came into knowledge of some information on the 6th or the 7th of January 2023. And it sent a letter to the FSC, the regulator, on the 10th of January 2023. But the Gleaner is telling us, and I have reason to believe that this report is very accurate. The Gleaner is telling us that this employee was under investigation since August of 2022. And when I say investigation, as far as I understand, it is not a fraud squad FID investigation. It's an investigation being carried out by SSL through private investigator within the entity. One would have thought that based on the role, the function of the security dealership, the need to have the various audits, your internal auditors, the need to have your audited financial statements, and the way in which the system stands to suffer. If things are not done to cauterize fraud, and the best entities placed to do things are the FID, the fraud squad, and obviously your regulator FSC. Why, if you find out something and have one of your employees under investigation since August of 2022, why did this information not go to the police from then? The woman was reportedly sent on leave in September over the discovery of non-cash discrepancy linked to information sent to clients. A failure to satisfactorily explain the issue resulted in the initiation of disciplinary proceedings that dragged out until early January. Attempts at an amicable settlement covered by a non-disclosure agreement for both sides were dashed after the discovery over 2 weeks ago of millions of dollars missing from accounts belonging to clients managed by the advisor. So the Gleaner is telling us that since August of 2022, SSL not only had wind of, but so concerned were they that they initiated disciplinary proceedings against this particular individual, an employee of SSL. And they got to the point of the end of the disciplinary procedure where it was agreed that a settlement was reached. The settlement was to have a non-disclosure agreement. And it was not until January now when this said discovery, but as far as I'm understanding, is not any discovery by SSL per se. It seems as if there's more information coming, perhaps from this person, is as a result of the additional information in January why the amicable settlement containing the non-disclosure agreement didn't go through. Bolt reportedly did not appear on an early list until the woman reportedly called the 100-meter record holders management on January 11 and quote-unquote confessed. Bolt had been receiving statements from SSL that indicated that all was well within his portfolio. His manager, Nugent Walker, told the Gleaner last Thursday, and we've had confirmation of this from the letter from the attorneys representing Usain Bolt. And the letter tells us that up to October of 2022, there was a representation to them that Bolt's portfolio was valued at approximately 13 million, 12 point something million as at October 2022. The Gleaner continues, Bolt has been with the company for more than 10 years and his entire portfolio is being reviewed. He said his portfolio. They tell us that it is purportedly $12,000 that's left. What happened to the other decimal places? And And then here the Gleaner now. Bolt's portfolio, which is linked to a holding company, has reportedly been defrauded of approximately $6 million in stocks and bonds, while other clients lost a total of approximately $4 million, preliminary estimates indicate. If this is correct, we do not yet know what the holding company is, which is why I think the initial investment, the form, whether it's a wire transfer or a check, all of these things we need to know. Yeah? And what is the controlling name of the entity in which the investment was being held? The Gleaner says a holding company. An additional Jamaican $40 million in stocks and bonds was also reportedly misappropriated. SSL's chairman, Jeffrey Cobham, who carried the duties of Group CEO after Zachary Harding left the job last June, did not confirm when the company learnt of the fraud, but said a statement was obtained from the employee on January 7. So remember now, the Gleaner tells us disciplinary proceedings commenced in September of last year, and they were at a point of settling with the employee. They were going to part ways amicably with a non-disclosure. But come January 7, according to the SSL chairman as represented by the Gleaner, they obtained a statement on the 7th of January. And I think this is the one that everybody passing around. That date is consistent with the Sunday Gleaner's understanding that the woman was questioned on the 6th and the 7th by SSL's private investigators and lawyers. Now, this is what I don't get. By the account so far, there are concerns sufficient to institute disciplinary proceedings. By the nature of the business that SSL conducts, you have a regulator, you're holding people's money, and you get report of the nature that you got, but you call in private investigator alone, and fraud squad, FSC is told about it on the 10th of January, formally. This is not right. So we have to first assess the role of a licensed security dealership. What are they to do in circumstances such as this, and did they do what they were supposed to do? The other question we will jump to, remember now, draw your chart. SSL, FSC. Should some of these things miss FSC over the years? And if they did miss FSC, why? But it doesn't appear from a later report based on what we now learn that the things were missed by FSC. It does appear that some of the concerns that they raised, certainly the attorney, the law firm for SSL, represented to FSC at points in time, and FSC did seem to agree that some of the concerns they raised with SSL as late as 2017, that they were remedied. But we go back to the story. So, private investigator and lawyer questioned the woman on the 6th and the 7th. A letter was sent to FSC now, which regulates non-deposit taking institutions on January 10. And the FSC issued directions on January 12, essentially taking over the operations of the 50-year-old entity under what it called enhanced oversight. This enhanced oversight reflects the need for FSC to have a full view of the integrity of the transactions being conducted, including movement of funds and securities, and it goes on. SSL is not unfamiliar with the FSC having to intervene in its operation, says the Gleaner. In October 2013, FSC announced it curtailed the activities of SSL after FSC approved disposal of SSL's repo business to JN fund managers in July of 2013. The Financial Services Commission, FSC, said then it was seeking to protect, quote, a small number of select, sophisticated investors who hold bonds issued by SSL. What on earth do they mean by this small, select, sophisticated investors? In March of 2020 now, the FSC blocked SSL from accepting some new funds from customers, the Jamaica Observer reported. And it said that followed the FSC's sanctioning of SSL over what it deemed were unsafe and unsound practices. Harding, then the company's boss, said corrective actions were being taken and SSL is in safe hands and have nothing to hide. He took over as CEO of SSL Group in October 2019 after his own company, Hyperion Equity Inc., acquired a stake in SSL Group. Harding led a restructuring which included offloading the real estate arm SSL Rate to Kingston Wharves Limited, and before the sale of microfinance company Dollar Financial Services to First Capital Holdings. He also sold SSL Ventures, a failed rebranded version of SSL Venture Capital Limited, which was acquired by MFS Acquisition Limited, an entity formed in 2022 by shareholders of Microlender and Cambio Microfinance Solutions. It's a lot of acquisitions and so forth going on here. But listen to this part that struck me as interesting. SSLV, which is SSL Venture Capital Limited, first came to the stock market in 2012 as a music publishing startup called C2W Music Limited, a business that ultimately failed, racking up losses amounting to US $1.5 million up to December 2017 based on audited statements. The auditors, Baker Tilly Strawn Lafayette, said since inception the company, this is the company now, C2W, never achieved the level of projected revenues required to sustain operations. And so in 2018, SSL, which had brokered C2W's listing, so SSL acted as the broker when the initial public offering was being made by C2W. And SSL took over the loss-making operation of C2W, revised its business model, and relisted it as SSL Ventures. But SSL Venture Capital, SSLVL, they say that effort failed. And there are questions about the IPOs, the initial public offerings take-up, and SSL's investment in the company. This is the C2W that sought $129 million. And questions that were raised, the answers have not come. Responses have been sought from FSC about its own oversight and concerns it may have had surrounding SSL before last week's development. So, I think we have to. The article goes on. think we have to look at this C2W Music Limited. We have to look at the SSL being the broker for the IPO for C2W. We need to understand who the directors are or were under C2W. We need to properly understand how the IPO went for C2W and who are the majority shareholders in C2W, which business ultimately failed financially based on what we understand are notes by the auditors, then Baker Tilly Strawn Lafayette, which said since the inception, C2W didn't achieve the level of projected revenues required to sustain its operations. So here you have this entity that never achieved the financial level to sustain its operations, but it was gobbled up by SSL Venture Capital Limited, SSLVC. Huh? So when this entity, SSLVC, sort of repurpose itself from C2W not being able to sustain its operations, what level of debt did SSL take on by repurposing C2W into SSLVC? And by itself, each of those by itself, what is being communicated to us, if anything, and then taken as a part of the whole, which we do not yet know? What do we get from the whole? When we come back from the break, we're going to look at the disciplinary proceedings against this young lady and to question whether SSL did right by calling in private investigators from last year and apparently not notifying the regulator. This is the Hotline Headlines time. Thank you, listeners. We're back with you on the Hotline. I'm going to go back now to this disciplinary hearing for this employee at SSL, because SSL is making us understand, or wished for us to understand, that it came into knowledge of information on or around the 6th or the 7th and the 7th of January 2023, as a result of which it sent a letter to the FSC on the 10th of January. And we know that the 12th of January is when the FSC issued directions to SSL, indicating it was going to have a supervisory tool to allow FSC to engage an entity in a process of enhanced oversight. But what happened before that? There's a letter several letters I want to bring to your attention. This is from counsel for the lady for alleged breach of company code of ethics, dated November 29, 2022. And the attorney for the lady writes to the attorney for SSL. Reference is made to your letter dated November 16 and November 28, 2022 received via email. I don't have those letters, November 16 and November 28. The contents of both letters have been duly noted, and my client has advised after consideration that she will not be accepting the settlement offer proposed in your prior correspondence, as she is of the opinion that her actions do not warrant separation from the company. Additionally, with respect to the other responses raised, my instructions, however, remain the same, and I've been asked to reiterate my client's position as to her continued ill health coupled with the behavior of your client that is constantly communicating with her as to her availability led her to agreeing to a date and embarking on a hearing whilst unrepresented. She was also not fully cognizant of her right to have an attorney at law present to protect her interest prior to being advised at the commencement of the hearing. Again, the adjournment to allow her to furnish a written response to the allegations, whilst appreciated, is my considered opinion that the hearing should not have commenced without her being represented. The proceedings are therefore tainted and should start afresh, and this would be my response to the intent to reconvene as stated in your letter, dated November 2022. I await your response so we can agree on convenient dates to start anew the proceedings. Please also be advised that the date of Friday, December 2 is not convenient to my diary. So, sometime in 2022, this is me now, my comment. I'm not sure which month yet, but SSL came into knowledge of something. The thing they came into knowledge of, they thought it was a breach of the company code of ethics by this person. As a result, they initiated the process of disciplinary proceedings against the person. And they wrote through their lawyers to the person to convene a disciplinary hearing. It appears that, all right, let's go to a break and come back.
Get your micro credentials and short professionals at course minutes after 10.
Cost advertising on 94 FM for items to be included.
Maybe
9.
You're now listening to Emily Shields Talk with Substance on Hotline. Radio Jamaica, active for the good of our nation.
This is now us going behind a lot of what has been reported and telling you some matters that you should know before, that took place before, which may be important. So I just read the letter from the lawyer for the lady against whom disciplinary proceedings were brought. The lawyer was in essence taking the point that the procedure used was not appropriate. The company SSL made a settlement offer in one or two letters dated November 16 and the 28th, 2022. The attorney for the lady wrote to say she has considered it and she won't be accepting the settlement. Well, proposed in your prior correspondence, so I'll take it back about the date, because the lady instructed her lawyer that she doesn't believe that her actions for which they took her to the disciplinary hearing, that those actions at the time they didn't warrant separation from the company. So this is the response now of SSL lawyer to the lawyer for the lady. We refer to your letter dated November 29, 2022. We note your client's position. In relation to your request for hearings to begin anew, our client is not willing to accede. We are instructed that, I'll leave out the name now, was fully advised of her right to have an attorney present at the hearing by our client's then HR manager when the lady was first alerted to an investigation into her conduct. In any event, upon advising that she did not understand that she could have an attorney present, though we were instructed that this was made clear to her, both the panel and the writer advised her that the hearing could be adjourned in order to allow her to obtain legal representation. Your client insisted that she wished to proceed as the recording will show. Consequently, we do not agree that the proceedings are tainted and we see no need for recommencement. The opportunity for your client to provide written responses in consultation with you is still open to her up to the point of the hearing being reserved for judgment by the panel. And remember that the attorney for the lady said December 2 was not convenient to her, so the lawyer proposed December 5 at 2 p.m. for reconvening. So this is November now. So they intended to have a settlement to settle with the lady based on what they found out sometime before November. The lawyer pushed back, procedural breaches. Then now December 8, 2022, the lady's lawyer wrote again in response to that letter. Reference is made to your letter dated 30th November 2022, and as I promised, I'm formally responding. Please note, my client is fully aware of the nature and seriousness of allegations made. However, at this point, they are allegations of which she is yet to be found guilty. Her tenure of 2 decades with the industry is precisely why the entire procedure ought to be undertaken properly, as this is the entity that she's given sterling contributions to over the years. Additionally, it must be done in a manner that is without a taint of bias, so it can stand scrutiny should this matter go another place. It bears repeating that natural justice requires that she be afforded a proper hearing, where she's given an opportunity to face accusers, respond to the allegations, most importantly, that she should have representation. I am advised that 7 documents were tendered in evidence, and being totally unaware that she could challenge and or cross-examine those documents, they now form part of the body of evidence against her. My instructions remain same, that she was not aware of the necessity to have counsel, and prior to the commencement she felt pressured and hence response. I will be present as indicated on the 12th of December 2022. I intend to advise the panel of my concerns and objection. To that end, I would ask that you furnish all the documents that have been tendered in evidence to date and any other documentary evidence you wish to put into evidence, your witness list and witness statements. All of this is happening where SSL got to the point of deciding to settle with their employee of over 20 years as a result of alleged breach of company code of ethics, and which disciplinary proceedings appeared to have, where they could have ended in November of 2022. And it doesn't appear that the regulator was informed or fraud squad was brought in, or FID, or any of the external gatekeepers. Anyway, the attorney for SSL again writes to the attorney for the lady. And the attorney says, we refer to your letter dated December 8. The documents tendered in evidence were provided to your client by email before the hearing. We enclose that email and its attachments to this letter. The company does not intend to tender any further documentation. It is quite surprising to us that your client felt pressured when we in fact suggested the adjournment, and it was echoed by chair of the panel upon her communication that she misunderstood the indication that she may have legal representation present. The company called only the Chief Financial Officer, Ms. Alison Hemmings. The panel has indicated that it wishes to hear from Mr. Hugh Croskery, and the hearing on Monday, December 12 will facilitate that. We retain our position expressed in the previous letter that there is no need for the hearing to be restarted. And then now, there's a letter from the executive chairman of SSL dated the 11th of January 2023 to the lady. Dismissal for act of dishonesty and conduct damaging to reputation. So this letter, we write to inform you that the panel hearing the charges against you has found you guilty of the following charges. Remember, these are disciplinary hearings now. This is not criminal law. This is internal disciplinary hearings for purposes of suspension of any other thing, including dismissing. And these were the charges. 1, committing acts of dishonesty in relation to the employer, customers, or any related entity. 2, conduct which can be reasonably regarded as damaging to the reputation of the employer. The panel has recommended your dismissal. Consequently, you are hereby dismissed from the company effective the date of this letter. A copy of the written reasons provided by the panel will be provided to you once it is received by the company. You will note that in accordance with SSL Employee Handbook 2018, Clause 12.6, you will have 5 clear days within which to submit a written notice of appeal with grounds of appeal if you are dissatisfied with the decision. You're entitled to be paid 1 month's notice in lieu of any unused vacation days. However, please note, you have no unused vacation day. And indebtedness toward the company will be deducted from payment in lieu of notice. As you remain indebted to the company for the sum of at least US $4,323,073 and Jamaican dollars 90.93 million in relation to instances of fraud to which you have confessed, no payment will be made, and you remain liable to repay them of at least US $4,323,073 and Jamaican $90,930,000. Kindly contact the company's attorneys at law. The name is stated there if you have any questions. So, this letter purportedly dismissed the employee, the panel having heard charges and found her guilty of committing acts of dishonesty in relation to the employer, customers, or related activity, and conduct which can be reasonably regarded as damaging the reputation of the employer. And they say, interestingly, that these sums that she remains indebted to the company are sums to which she confessed. There's no indication here either that by their internal records they have had confirmation that clients' accounts were defrauded to the extent of the alleged confession. And then there's a letter now from the chair for the panel to the lawyer for SSL. Let me go to a break and come back.
You're listening to Radio Jamaica, the voice of the nation.
Grinnell's Driving School in partnership with
444-2441. What a hustle.
Now listening to Emily Shields Talk with Substance on Hotline. Radio Jamaica, active for the good of our nation.
Thank you, listeners. We're back with you on the hotline. So, this is all making a lot of sense and providing some context. The last letter I'll read to you is interesting. This letter now is the 11th of January 2023 from the chair of the disciplinary panel to the lawyers for SSL. And the disciplinary matter, from the heading it appears that the disciplinary matter related to misrepresentation of account balance on a particular client's account by the employee. And I'll read it for you. Obviously, I won't call the client's name. This is the chair now saying, reference is made to the conversation that we had on the 11th of January 2023, and the we, they put the we who were included in the conversation, including the attorney for SSL, in which 3 members of the disciplinary panel notified you, the attorney, that we unanimously agreed that the lady was guilty and as charged, and that consequently we recommend that she be dismissed. This letter is to confirm that following the hearings on November 1, December 12, and January 11, we have found the lady guilty of the following charges which were brought against her: committing an act of dishonesty in relation to the employer, customers, or any related entity; 2, conduct which can be reasonably regarded as damaging the reputation of the employer. And they outline the reasons for finding the lady guilty. 1, as a designated client relationship manager with 25 years experience assigned to handle this particular account, the lady gave an unconvincing explanation as to the rationale for overstating the balance on this person's account by $144,668.50 as at May 2022 in letters that she acknowledged that she prepared and signed. And these became Exhibits 3, 4, and page 4 of Exhibit 6, which the chair of the panel attached to the lawyer for ease of reference. As such, her action outlined is in contravention of the company's ethical practices and obligations policies, which states that employees must attend to professional services diligently. We concluded that such conduct was gross negligence, and they refer her to the employee handbook. They say she also acknowledged that she prepared and submitted to this particular client the portfolio valuation statement indicating that as at May 2, 2022, he had bonds in JPS with maturity date of the 6th of July 2022 valued at $3,113,750.81. The lady further acknowledged orally and in writing that the client did not own any such bonds. And as such, remember this is the chair of the panel of SSL now, disciplinary panel, we find that she intentionally misrepresented the facts in the statement she provided for the client. We concluded that she, quote, knowingly created and distributed a false and misleading, end quote, financial statement to the client. And as such, it is a breach of Clause 3 of their anti-fraud policy. See Exhibit 7 for reference. So the conduct, gross misconduct, they say, negligence and poor judgment were likely to impact the company's finances and reputation negatively and is therefore inimical to SSL's best interest. In light of the foregoing, we hereby confirm the recommendation of the disciplinary panel that the lady be sanctioned by dismissal as provided for by the company's handbook. So that's the end of the letters. These are my unvarnished thoughts. So we have a situation based on the chronicling that I've presented for you, where information came to the attention of SSL, sufficient for SSL to document to the employee the information it came into possession of, and to, having written to her, to inform her of hearing dates. And these hearing dates, the first one appears to have been November 1. Now, if you're going to convene a hearing November 1, by law, you need to give the person reasonable time. So you have to tell the client, the person, the allegations against the person. You give them a chance to reply in writing to the specific allegations. If there are statements of the person making allegation, you give them the statement, and you give them reasonable time to attend a hearing. So if the hearing was first held November 1, you can well imagine when the allegation of misrepresentation of account balance became known to SSL. And the allegation of the misrepresentation of account balance, it is saying that the lady overstated the balance on the account of this particular client, who is not Usain Bolt, by the way. She overstated the balance by US $10.144 million as at May 2022. In letters they say she acknowledged and she prepared and signed. So if you get something like this, a misrepresentation of account balance to that tune, and then you also come into knowledge that the same person prepared and submitted to the client a valuation statement showing that in May of 2022, the person had bonds with a company valued at over $3 million US, and the person never really had any bonds. Don't you try and ask yourself, what is it that is being covered? Why is this person inflating or representing things that didn't appear? That don't you ask yourself that? So whilst you carry out your internal disciplinary hearings, do you not simultaneously activate some other processes? And if you didn't, why didn't you? And that is the question. So I get no comfort now from hearing that all of these things were going on, certainly in the last quarter of 2022, but it is not until the 6th or the 7th of January, and in fact the 10th of January, that the public is made known, the public is notified through a letter to the FSC that these things are happening. On top of all that has been going on in the entity, flagged up by the FSC over all of these years, ought not more to be required, ought not more to be given by the various controlling minds of this problem-plagued entity over all of these years? And if more was not given, if more people were not notified, if the oversight didn't come, why not? And between then, let's say the latter part of last year and up to the 10th of January, how many more investors put money in not knowing that this thing that appears to be completely functional and in good management control, that it really wasn't? So we are interested in the minute details because they tell a story by themselves. You know, that's why I tell you have to watch international matters. You know, there's a young man who came to prominence over the last couple of years in the United States. Young boy, they on the cover all sort of magazines. Former company named FTX. Said to be one of the brightest guys around. Sam Bankman-Fried. And one piece of cataclysmic collapse of this FTX, this whole cryptocurrency, this whole network that this guy set up, FTX and another company that he set up from which he was literally taking money from FTX to bleed into some other entity, and it all collapsed to the point where even before the collapse, our neighbor, Bahamas, was supposed to be the recipient of all of the financial crumbs of Bankman-Fried's table. Let me go to a break and come back.
Newport for Sand Jamaica Limited, the first on the land, blenders of high-quality fertilizers. The time by Newport for Sand Jamaica Limited is
10:46.
You're now listening to Emily Shields Talk with Substance on Hotline. Radio Jamaica, active for the good of our nation.
Yes. And the thing came to a head, and when it came to a head, what international media are reporting is 10 little young pitney who are behind this whole farce. Make Enron look like it now and try. Yeah? And being propped up by all sort of companies. Part of the thing is that this guy funded the Democrats, he funded the Republicans, and it's like people were literally turning a blind eye. He was arrested the other day in Bahamas and extradited back to the United States to go stand trial. People have lost billions. Pensions wiped out. And we there now take sleep mark debt. We are sleep too deep. Look how many things have happened around us. We saw Enron, you know. And we saw this guy, FTX, and Alameda. We see them all. What makes us think we'll be so immune to whatever else? Which is where the controls know. The questions about the controls have to come in. So FSC, you better saggle up, because we soon go deal with you. But don't forget the stops. You have to stop at the right place first. And the first stop must be with the entity, because they have a certain level of responsibility to you, the investors. And in fact, to the entire industry as security dealership, because the collective integrity of the security dealership needs to be protected. If it falters, a lot of things will go with it. Yeah? And similar to what I see on the website, the FTX website is not operational because of the collapse of this sham FTX with the criminal mastermind, Sam Bankman-Fried. Go look him up and make the comparison with Enron and make the comparison with a whole heap of other things that we know about here locally. This is the hotline. Is reading day. Are coming to your calls now. More to read, but 876-926-2178, 926-8631, 926-7615, and 1-888-99-12080. The last thing I'll say to you, some are we quick to judgment. And at judgment time, make we understand what we into first and ask the relevant questions of the relevant people. If you ask relevant questions of the wrong people, you will not get the correct answers. So draw your chart. This is a hotline. I think I want some ginger. Oh, before we go to ginger, I couldn't help thinking of this song. I couldn't help thinking of this song. Oh, God. What a beautiful thing. Oh, Bella ciao, Bella ciao, Bella ciao, ciao, ciao. Anake. You know it, Anake? Na 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 dio. Na 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 na. Bella ciao, Bella ciao. Da 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 dio. Bella ciao, Bella ciao, Bella ciao, ciao, ciao. One of the most interesting series. Da 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 dio. Da 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 do. Bella ciao, Bella ciao. You've got to watch this thing called Money Heist. And I'm not a movie watcher. I like to read. I don't have time to watch movies. But let me tell you something. That's something, yeah. Watch it. But there's the other one where Professor, in the actual thing where Professor was singing with his brother. That is just a classic. I'm going to come to the the calls now. Make sure you stay upon this, listeners. I'm right here. Don't move me off of this. And go take notes. It's note-taking time. No conclusion, just make notes, okay? Bella ciao, Bella ciao, Bella ciao. Bella. Where's a Bella? You know, say Bo. Yes, sir. Class is in session. Hello.
Boy, you know you're Aki.
No, call Aki to me, because Aki nearly killed me the other day.
What you saying?
Ah, Jesus.
What?
Me never, honestly, me all end up in hospital.
God, 30 years, but you know.
But me not stop eating it, you know.
No, I stopped eating it once, and the thing is so nice, I gone back on it again.
How are you? It's a long time I don't hear you. Senior citizen representative.
I'm here.
Mm-hmm.
Could be worse. I'm not in the hearse.
Well, how do you know the hearse is worse?
Well, yes, well, based on what passed. Yeah, I just called to say, Merry Christmas, Happy New Year. I don't have nothing to say to you unless you want to talk to me.
Okay. Well, thank you for that. I have nothing to say to you, so thank you so much. It's good to hear you. Thank you for the call.
Have a good day. I'm still around.
All right.
Okay.
Take care.
Bye.
This is the hotline. 926-7615. Hello?
Hello, good morning.
How are you?
I am well. Who am I speaking to, please?
Who do you wish to speak to, ma'am?
Is that the hotline?
Yes, it is. This is Emily Shields. To whom do I speak?
Hello, Mrs. Shields. My name is Marilyn Tapper, and I'm the president for the Returned Citizens Association of Jamaica.
Yes.
More or less returned residents, but a bit different from Mr. Latouche.
Yes. Yes, Miss Tapper.
I'm just ringing up Mrs. Shields to ask you if you could use your good office, because really, we, the returned residents, most of us use Jamaica National in the UK, and Jamaica National in the UK has sort of cornered every section of our community in England.
Mm-hmm.
Most of the offices are closed in England, so, people of our age group in the 70s and late 60s are not really too much accustomed to emails and all those sort of things.
Yes.
And therefore we have a lot of difficulty when we come down here. And I just wondered if you could use your good office, because you're going to these especially to Jamaica National, you go into their offices and it's crowded.
Yes.
And I mean, we have to wait. We're elderly people, most of us, and we have to wait perhaps from about 10 o'clock until about 2 o'clock.
So what do you wish to happen, Miss Tapper?
Well, I wish to really have for them to have a section that deals with returned residents,
yes.
Because we come from Canada, we come from America, we come from Europe, we come all over.
Yes.
And when we come, and they encourages us a great deal to open our accounts with them.
Yes.
When we come down here, the treatment, and the waiting time.
Yes.
You go in there on a Monday morning and it's about 3 people dealing with us. I mean, they said they have a section for elderly people, but really,
yes.
it just doesn't work.
Yes. Thank you for that, and I think it is well placed. I never thought somebody had to call to say that.
Yes, ma'am. I mean, and similarly to the banks, they're just about the same.
Mm-hmm.
We go. I mean, they encourages us. It's a big thing to bank our money in Jamaica. And another thing is, most of us doesn't even know that if we were elderly people, they don't not actually charge us the price for keeping our money there as they do with other sort of entities.
Yes.
So if you could use your good office, ma'am, just highlight that for us.
Yes, you have done it in beautiful ways, so I don't think I need to say much more.
Okay.
Your voice is more powerful than mine. It's your lived experience, Ms. Tapper, but thank you. Thank you for that.
Thank you, Mama. And just to say hi to all the returning residents and to wish them well and keep them safe.
Thank you.
And that we have a branch in every community.
Yes.
Every section is doing.
Good to have you, and I wish you peace, safety, long life as you return to your country.
Yes, and thank you very much for having me, Ma'am. God bless.
Mm-hmm. Thank you.
Happy New Year.
8631. Hello?
Hello, Mrs. Steele.
Yes, hi.
Alice I'm blind man from Westmoreland at that,
Yes.
Yes, Mrs. Steele, say, some people call me last week from the from Mr. Golden office, Mark Golden.
Yes?
Yeah, but when them call me, Mrs. Steele,
mm-hmm.
one lady called me and she said, if I want to talk to Mr. Golden, definitely say yes.
Mm-hmm.
All right, she said she will make me get to talk to you. Monday, and next lady called me. She tell me her name is Miss Clark.
You don't have to tell me her names. So you don't get to talk to Mr. Golden yet?
No. And she knows, she asked who's my MP. Me tell her who's my MP and say lose. And she asked me who's my councillor. Me tell her says
what you mean your MP lose? Your MP can't lose. The PNP MP lose, but you have a JLP MP?
Yes. So
wait. You are George, right? Or
no.
you're Moreland?
Wilson.
Yes, Moreland, Western. Uh-huh.
She asked me who is my counselor, and I tell her it's Jimmy Mackenzie.
Yes.
She said, all right. If you give her Jimmy Mackenzie number, give her the number. In the night, about 7, 8 o'clock, Jimmy Mackenzie called me and said, how me gone for an RG and ask for some help and whatsoever. Something that say, he said to me, say, but me not take care of you, man. I said, man, you're my daddy, man. You're my daddy, man. Me know how you getting at this, man. You're my daddy. Me call him, call it to help. You're my daddy, man. Because still, that man, right during the pandemic, me get my bag of food. Every year he give me work 2 times.
Okay.
Every year he give me work 2 times, Mr. Steele. So the reason why I never go back to him, Mr. Steele, me tell him, send me the farm part. And me need a full cup to build for part.
Well, the good thing is you have a lot coming to you, it appears, and people are fight over you now. Are your name Gully Bop no blind man?
What me should I get? Me don't know how me get over why Mr. Man talk to me.
I've got to go. She'll probably call back. I've got to go to headlines. Thank you for the call. Take care. Thank you, listeners. We're back with you on the hotline. You saw the developments last evening as well, where the Prime Minister of New Zealand, Jacinda Ardern, has said this is it for her. She doesn't have enough in her tank to continue. How many of us don't have enough in our tanks to continue and won't even accept it? Mark, she was facing an uphill battle for a 3rd term, I believe it is. So, but it is, I think women sense and face up to some things before. Yeah. No, somebody just sent to me where somebody posted right now, the financial institution, in bracket bank, have to give me 2 references and a passport size picture of every staff signed by 6JP before me open an account. Remember though, listeners, you see this thing away is alleged to have happened at the security dealership. It couldn't happen at bank, so. It couldn't happen at bank, so. Not again. Yeah? Because the controls are there. Something might happen, but the catch is going to come, which is why the BOG sent out the statement reminding us that it supervises deposit-taking institutions, commercial banks and building societies. Yeah? So bear that in mind. This is the hotline, 9262178. Hello? Hello?
Miss Cooks.
When you call me, this is a time for me. I have 1.5 minutes with you. Plus, that is the extent of your credit.
I see him set of people, Miss Cooks.
Who?
I see him set of people they were in a one little office in the 90s. And the same thing. You see the thing when you read this morning with the music business was set up and then it moved into some. So they moved.
Wait, no, hold on a second, because yes, I'm to put my hands on those papers. You don't speak. You have the papers?
No.
Okay, make we get the papers before you come with the conclusions.
But you read it, Miss Crooks?
No, I read it, but I didn't read the directors behind the entities. So when we get the thing...
So they move the bad debt, like all this one, and they never have no money, they move, and this
that's
one
fine.
Buy out and move with the same company going to the next one until they left it. It's the same thing happened in the 90s.
But we will get it.
Same thing.
Yeah, when we get it, we will think there.
It's the same thing happened, Miss Crooks. Same set of people, you see, the boy, them a chopper, and the woman, them no a toucher. No touch nothing, you know, because me will lick you upon your hand. Me will slap you upon your hand. Me warn you.
How are you warning me?
Yes.
They had a pincher. They had a pincher in England. The guy Pincher. Pincher led to the demise of Boris Johnson. You remember Pincher? Pincher in name and deed.
You see? We don't understand what happened. Everybody want apartment. Eh?
No, this is something is not. This is bigger than apartment.
Everybody want apartment and big car.
No, this is not car. This is something more than that. It don't make sense.
The same thing happened in the 90s. where taxpayers have to bail out call one certain name FinSac, because same way they move the bad debt from one
No,
entity
FinSac
to the
was
other.
FinSac was a little different,
It's
quite
the
different.
same-
No.
it's the same set of people,
No,
them.
all exacerbated too by extremely high interest rates when the bank went outside of their core mandate
Well,
into
this-
some areas. That is true. But I've got to go to
This aggravated
pesticide
by
control.
cheating.
What a time.
Yeah.
Couldn't want to hear from somebody more than I want to hear from Peter Rose, Hall, Managing Director of BPM Financial. Boy, how are you?
I'm good. A lot is going on, eh?
Yes, man.
A lot.
Talk to the people. Because every week we come here and we talk to them about building wealth.
Yes.
You cannot do things in savings account. You can save, but you can't build wealth. And then when we see the jitters in the market from the reports of the last 8 days,
Yes.
I just want to understand. I don't know if it's your plan to take us through some of these, but I want to understand some of the workings of the industry of which you're a part. Particularly, are you not required to have crime insurance, fraud insurance, negligence insurance? And
Yes.
if you are, give me the level of insurance coverage you're supposed to have in the event of, so that in the event of skullduggery, people can get back some of their money from the insurance and things like those.
Right. So there are two securities dealers have to have a license. You have to have fraud insurance. But the level of fraud, or the purported level of fraud, I don't think it would be 100% coverage, but there is some coverage because we all have to carry fraud insurance. And in addition to that, stock purchases. With each transaction, the stock exchange keeps a little bit in a compensation fund. There's a small portion of the value of your transaction which actually goes into a compensation fund in the event of any mishap like this, where you have fraud, and it's to help compensate the investor. Yes, so there is that as well.
But do you know?
Just
Go back
depends on what kind of investments the individuals have.
Right. For the fraud insurance, is there a minimum coverage that is required in terms of quantum, or do you recall how it is that the coverage is taken out?
So I don't think it's per individual. You're asking me what percentage will be covered, right?
Yes.
For an individual, I'm not 100% sure what that would be. I just know that there is a kind of broad amount that we're asked to maintain on an annual basis in order to keep your license. And that's monitored. We have to provide a certificate from the insurer to the FSC annually to so they can be satisfied that fraud insurance is in place.
And the insurer, is it normally local or international?
No, I think most of them is international. So in the case of BPM, it's Lloyd's of London that carries our fraud insurance.
And what do you need to satisfy the insurer on for you to be insured by them?
We have to answer quite an extensive questionnaire on the business itself, the type of business. We have the client base that we have, the assets that we have. We have to provide annually audited financial report statement from that we get from our auditors. We have to submit that as well, and it's quite extensive. The questionnaire that we have to complete, and they do their due diligence. We have to also give our money laundering protocols, our policy guidelines, our manuals, that kind of thing.
Right.
So it is quite extensive, their due diligence, and then they, accept or reject you, as it were.
Yes.
And that's how you get the coverage.
And you need fit and proper.
Well, the fit and proper really comes about from, we have to provide them with the fact that we have licenses from the FSC, and the FSC takes care of the fit and proper side of things.
Right. And then for the purposes of FSC's oversight now, is there a requirement for any entity in the securities dealership to have an internal auditor?
Yes, we have internal audits. We have external audits. It's a very, I know it sounds strange to say it, but it's a highly regulated industry. We have to submit reports. We have deadlines to meet. All of that. Monthly reports to the FSC. So it's not. I know from the stories that we are getting in through the media that it sounds a little loose sometimes, but it's a very highly regulated. In fact, sometimes I think we're overly regulated, but we do have to submit a lot of reports to the FSC, and we do have to have audits, so it's not just internal reports. We have external examiners that, like our auditors who provide, reports to the FSC and so on. So there is a lot of reporting.
In the event that there is an allegation or a discovery internally of actions of malfeasance, misfeasance, breach of ethics, or whatever against an employee of any of the companies, is there a requirement to inform FSC or bring in fraud squad? Or?
You're supposed to bring in the fraud squad, and you also report to the FSC that this has happened, that they can, monitor and, really come on board, as it were.
Yes.
To see what has happened internally.
And the requirement is for the report to be made in what period of time after discovery of any of these things?
Well, I think if you're prudent, you would do it as soon as you discover. I don't know if in the regulations there's a specific time period stipulated. I'm not aware of that. I'm not sure of that. But if you discover fraud in your business, then I would think that you'd want the fraud squad to come in immediately, right? Because you'd want to cauterize whatever is going on.
Right.
And I think in most cases, that's exactly what people do. They call in the fraud squad immediately, and they notify whoever the regulator is, whether it's Bank of Jamaica. In the case of banks, and we have had a lot of bank incidents of bank fraud in recent times, and also the FSC if you're monitored and regulated by the FSC. And the stock exchange too, because remember, there's that license as well.
Yes.
So all the regulators would have to be notified.
Yeah. Let me ask you about your own, how does it work internally now? I know that you don't take cash deposits.
No.
So anybody who wants to invest in BPM, how is it that
we ask them to wire the money to us, to our various bank accounts? Also, we do not disperse in cash. I know that that has come to light in some of these transactions that we read about in the paper. I don't have any internal knowledge, but I read about it in the press.
Yes.
And I'm actually surprised that there is cash disbursement. We don't deal with cash. We don't take cash, and we don't disperse in cash.
Why is that?
And one of the reasons is that if you, Emily Crooks, is getting a withdrawal, and I say to you, okay, your disbursement, where would you like your disbursement to go? And you give me your bank account and your name and so on. When I disburse to your bank account electronically, from my bank account to your bank account, if the name doesn't match or if the account number doesn't match, the money doesn't get transferred.
That's right.
Okay? So the money is at the bank, basically, and you recall it and you start again once you have the correct information. So it is a very good way to not have fraud.
Right. But is that an FSC requirement, or that is a BPM stipulation where you do by bank transfers and check deposits only?
I want to say BPM started doing this years ago, simply because we recognize that cash can be very problematic, right? Because sometimes they can't keep track of it effectively or efficiently. So the thing is, we don't need to have cash. We're not a bank. We're an investment company. So to do investments, we need your money, and then your money comes into our account and we do the investment on your behalf. And when you want a withdrawal, we reverse the process.
Mm-hmm.
So we do not need to have cash. Plus, there's money laundering regulations.
Yes.
Which of course, we know the money launderers want to deal with cash, right?
Yes, yes.
So we don't want to be swept up in that web either. And it's just a security thing. It just makes the transaction more secure for the client. No.
Yes.
I'm going to say something else now, which kind of leads us away from internal fraud within the companies. But to just say to clients, sometimes people's information can be, this can happen to people where they get your bank information off the internet, or they get your account information off the internet. So we, as individual consumers, we need to be careful too, to be mindful that our
That's
data
right.
might be out there, and you don't know who is
Yes.
at their computer and hacking into your email.
Yes.
And the minute you find that your email is hacked, you should change your email address.
Mm-hmm.
And you should also notify people like your bank, your investment company, and so on.
Yes.
Right? That this incident has occurred, and so you don't want, and there's private information out there.
Yes. The other thing I'd love to find out from you, if I make a transfer to BPM and you guide me that you're going to invest in stocks and bonds in whatever entities, you have a diversified portfolio. Is there an independent repository of the information that I can go and check so that when you give me a statement to say that this is the portfolio that you have stocks here, bonds here, and whatever, is there anywhere else I can check to make sure that what you're telling me is actually accurately represented by what you say?
Right. So if the way the portfolio is constructed is that you independently own these things. So say you go to a broker and you do a transaction on the stock exchange. The transaction is held by the actual asset is held by the securities, the JCSD,
Jamaica
which is the Central Depository.
Securities Depository, yes.
Right. So the Central Depository now was only always able to be accessed through the broker. But now, I heard recently that they said they're opening it up to the public, where you can go online and look at your own account, right? So you're going to have access to do that.
Yes, good. Good.
And other thing, Emily, is a lot of people they're stock owners, but they're not in the Central Depository.
I tell you what, Peter Rose, I have to call you back after to get some more information, on the other side, because this is important, and I'll give you back your time. This is a Hotline meditation and news time. Time for an abbreviated X and Y, because me not talk up to my people them much from morning. I mean, I want them call, come say them want talk up to me, and they want hear. Boy.
I wonder if they're figuring out now where to put their money, because I hear people are talking about they're going back to saving money on the mattress.
Did you see what's her name there?
Julie Mango.
Julie Mango.
She's such a character.
Oh, she's so up to the time. Julie Mango, what them say, where your account number? What she said, 8. Yes, that's a bundle that she has.
8 bundle.
Yeah, it is quite
But I don't know. People not used to save the money on the mattress, Emily.
Who's this so?
You know, sir. I never see nobody put money on the mattress when I was growing up.
And in a fold up and put in a breast.
Well, it's more like that. I used to say what they call it now?
In a brazier, me I say in a breast. You know, life is the money going in a breast.
So a thread bag.
And a banana trash. Banana bag, you roll it up, make cutter.
You slip not the thread bag. But no, seriously, I don't know. The mattress that people used to use back then, I don't know if it could have saved money. The money would have get wet up and all kind of other damage. You remember the things that people used to use to make mattress?
I'll chink, I bite it up.
You got it.
Banana trash, cardboard.
Yeah, so...
And then they had the spring bed. What an awful invention. Them spring bed, they will make you pure back pain.
And the springs are the wire that made up the spring. No, the spring was a coil, and then they had the wires that was kind of across. Some of them was kind of wide, you know.
What?
The wire.
So you could have dropped through?
Dropped through.
When you go on the spring bed, it's like a trampoline in the pan. Pong! You go up in the air and drop back.
And every move you move on the bed, you hear a sound.
Yes. But so it is. I mean, I think the confidence is shaken, but I think as soon as we get some answers and we can do a proper assessment of the landscape, then.
But there are some persons, you know, even in this modern time where you have stocks and bonds and other securities, that not tell them nothing but no, go invest in all these financial institutions, you know. They are sticking to their method of saving. They put their money in a little thread bag there, they have it tied upon them somewhere. I hope I'm money too. And for those who, back in my time when I was growing up, would have saved their money and then maybe do some investment in farming.
Yes, probably.
Yeah, you take it, you save and you take it by a cow. You save and you take it by a goat.
Oh, but all them time I would pray the last, you know, everywhere you get on. Shrink take you.
Everywhere you turn, Makajuk.
Shrink and flee. And this is why we have to make sure things are okay. But let's hear what the callers say, how they plan to do, whether their confidence is shaken or anything.
But then, they're not going to plan to do this. Listen to this. Candle scan. Put my money in a candle scan.
You have candle scan?
Panya jar.
I don't want candle scan. You better give me a cheese pan.
I think that would be more like it. It can hold more.
Bigger.
It would hold a lot more.
Yeah. That's X and Y. When we come back, your calls. Thank you, listeners. We're back with you. Ready for your calls now, except Earl. Earl is telling me that if I get the cheese pan for the money, it's going to be cheesy. And if it's cheesy, what's going to happen? Rat is going to eat it. Rat-tat-tat. Pirate around me. 9262178. Hello.
This is Sheil.
Mr. Coombs, how are you?
Good afternoon. You're going to own it first, right?
Yes.
Last week I tell you about Sandakan. Somebody tell you that me only talk about Sandakan. But the reason why I use that, the reason why I use his thing, because the government protect you with the weakness. That's why I refer his one to you. You get my point?
Protect which witness? Witness protection?
Yeah, because the government protect that witness and send him to England.
Okay,
so
got you.
So you see, I tell you, Mrs. Shield, blind can't lead blind. No. I don't want no blind lead me, but you follow up with it. So when people come past the remarks, they don't pass upon me, but them go learn. Me a ABC man, but me bad on them. All right, that is that now. Sometimes I go phone call you last year and tell you that Mr. Perkins, Mr. Michael Mann, they want to sue Perkins. Mr. Michael Mann, they did sue Perkins. And Perkins appear in a court without a lawyer. And law papa Mr. Mann, they come out of it. So Frank, you will listen and learn.
What do you mean you come out of it? How the case go?
Mr. Perkins win the case without a lawyer. He defends himself, Mrs. Shield.
Oh, libel?
Yes, I don't remember, but it was a big suit. Right? But I can tell you, Mr. Perkins understands by PMP, no Mr. Shield. I know Mr. Perkins, if I make the boy, he may senior me a little bit, not much, but I can tell you I know him. You hear about Crystal Spring in Portland?
No.
A place called Big Spring Yard. When you go to the pub, you're going to Orange Beer. Mr. Perkins' father was the busher. The owner man was Mr. Lion Hall. And Mr. Perkins' father was the busher for that man. So, me know him from Mr. Perkins. He used to come there. I used to go down there. A friend go help him milk our man time. I know Mr. Perkins at that time. So I know, right? But Mr. Perkins was a big PMP, but something go down the line. And that went to disclose it. That's why Mr. Perkins switched.
Oh?
Yeah, where you want to believe me, sir, no. I know Mr. Perkins, even after that, a person called, when you come and send me, you call Brad, get and go over there.
Yes.
He used in your Maho Hill, I believe. He used to a dairy farm over there. But it's a hilly place and selling it out. So me don't views, personal, me see him over there, but not to talk to. Morning and pass, right? So,
okay.
This is still enough to me know, right?
Yes, me know that. Thank you for the call.
That, me not boasting, but blind can't leave. The Bible says a blind lead a blind. He told them we got me a pit.
Well, depends.
Thanks for listening.
Yes,
tomorrow.
Yes, people think say if you're blind, you have to drop in a pit. Because blind use the cane better than some sighted people. Hello?
Thank you. Good afternoon.
And to you?
Oh, Happy New Year. Thanks for taking the minion on board.
Who is this?
You prefer talk to the ricer.
Franklin, where have you been?
I'm around, man. Listen to you and me hear Miss Lucy create some new word.
Always.
Did you hear it? Boy, I tell you, she's the best and truthful. But Ricer is the man. Ricer, you need to look at the tax and security number for Ricer lose money too.
Really? Well, it doesn't matter to me.
Ricer.
No, I'm not interested in the people who have invested in it because whoever invests their money, certain procedures must be in place. So I'm not interested in the list.
No, it's not. I understand. It's just being making a joke of comedy. So I call him not Ricer. Because he might eat enough rice. But trust me, I listened to the even before the news conference yesterday. I am not a very bright person, but I'm saying there is serious dereliction of duty from the FSC.
Well,
and then when you look at the board for SSL, former banker and all them people there, why this allowed to happen?
Well, I don't know any answers yet. No conclusions are yet.
That's a very big one. And I mean, we survived the meltdown in the 90s. We have Cash Plus and all those Ponzi schemes that went down in the early 2000s. And this again?
Yep. Although those were unregulated.
Yes.
Yes,
but it was a series of financial crisis, one after the other, like they happen every 15 years or thereabout.
Yes.
You know, we just need to just start doing better.
And I keep saying, if you look all over the world, just the other day, not even a month's good, them just lock up the boy, Sam Bankman-Fried, in a Bahamas.
Yes, yeah. And then...
Yes, set up big something down there. Was met by the Prime Minister and brought in on the understanding based on how he was propped up that he's this sort of financial wizard. His net worth was billions of US dollars, and it turns out that there was nothing there. The man literally created his own chip for his own company and using depositors from investors.
Live a big...
And the funny thing is, his vehicle was not a big vehicle, and I do not know the extent of whatever the housing stock and so forth that he had, but he was never in the flamboyance type of lifestyle, because they tell you anytime you're flamboyant, you know, really have nothing much. So he really wore it as well as he could, but he was using people's money that they put into this FTX thing and capitalizing this Almeida when turn around and give chip for. It is a most intriguing story, and that it could be happening in 2022 and before that in the United States. After Enron and all of them, it's something else.
Enron, you have Bernie Madoff.
Madoff.
Yeah, who you know, it's like, when will we learn?
So,
you know, my other issue is I'm trying to understand the CDA. Still trying to wrap my mind around...
You mean the CPFSA? What was the CDA, CPFSA? Let me go to a break. Yes, Franklin? Yes, you mean the CPFSA, yeah?
Yes, yeah, add the rest of it to it. That's if Child Protection Agency and Family something.
Child Protection and Family Services Agency, yes.
It's just my thing. The people who are in charge of enforcement and protection. Look at what had happened at Financial Services Commission and this place. It's just a laxness. You know, I remember reading in the Observer with the issue with SSL when they weren't allowed to trade, I think in 2017, and so nobody was there to look and say something not right, or in a Jamaican parlance, something not right.
No, from what I understand, the FSC had been flagging a lot of things at SSL, and SSL retained a law firm, and there were series of correspondences passing between the lawyer for SSL and the FSC, and there were assurances given that the matters flagged by the FSC, that there was compliance. So even though there were these problems over the years, as things went on, extensions were sought to submit audited financial statements for different times. Sometimes the timeline was met, and whatever was recommended by the FSC, those took place. I understand the FSC was to have done an examination as it wasn't satisfied with some of the things coming out of SSL. So I think one of the things I would love to find out is, having done the examination, which they can do under law, whether a report was made to the minister, whoever the minister was at the time, and if not, why not? But I certainly got the impression that the recommendations from the FSC, the threats to SSL over the years, as many as there were, there was communicated compliance with the directives from FSC.
The FSC was told. Did they go into check? The biggest lesson I've learned.
Yes, I understand they went in for an investigation.
And when they told them that we are going to correct this and correct that, did they go in and look at it?
As I understand, they said they did, and yes, I think it did happen.
And so much went down?
Tomorrow we were going to go through that.
Because the biggest lesson I've learned in my local industry that I work in, don't tell me say you do it. I want to come and see to it that it is done. Because when the person or people who have worked for asked me, and I said, yes, it is done, it must withstand scrutiny. So still I try to understand. I am not one of them big, highly educated persons, but I understand processes and follow up.
See, in 2017, you see, these are the written submissions of SSL. So their attorneys told FSC that this is how they're going to deal with some of the current issues. This is a failure to file audited account within 90 days after the close of the financial year.
They were
right? And they said that no, they were not suspended. They said they took SSL indicated it took 3 specific measures which its board believes will assure the problem of late submission of audited accounts and annual accounts will not occur. 1, they said they engage a company of internal auditors, BDO, and in particular those responsibilities would include continuous internal audit function and continuous internal control monitoring. They employ 2 additional executive team members, and there is another system which is a sort of electronic system, the Sage Prospero Wealth Management System. They indicated they invested in it, and so far the system was successfully tested with the company's international brokerage, and they outline a number of things. So it seems to me that at many steps of the way, though there were these issues of overall and consistent breaches, that they represented through their lawyers that things were being done.
Right. Maybe the same person are people who are implementing them. Somewhere along the line, the system was manipulated, and a lot of inaccuracies occur. I don't know.
Well, more to come. Thank you for the call, Franklin.
You're welcome, ma'am.
Take care. 9268631. Hello.
Hello, good afternoon.
How are you?
Hanging in there.
Who is this?
Happy New Year. The man from the street of the pharmaceutical.
Yes, the pharmaceutical man. What you have to tell me now?
No, said, let me try calling up for the X and Y things, and I love that, I can't get for calling, I know there with the goody and all and something there. But anyway, with the hopscotch though, me tell you one how it go. You draw the box. You have 3 boxes, single boxes, a double box, a single box, and a double box.
Yes, that's what Anna K drew last week.
But you can't add another single and one and a double if you want. Make it difficult.
Which part? Top or tail?
No, upper top.
Upper top.
Upper top. Yeah. Because.
But you couldn't make it up there, so?
Yeah, man.
You can't jump up there?
Oh, you mean? Because that's the test, the one leg business. So you have your man with your chore.
Yeah, me I hear about this man. I don't remember it.
The piece that you throw. You drop it in the first box. You have to jump over that.
Yes.
On one leg.
Yes.
And you keep going up the line. Then you turn around.
Yes.
The people use the stylish, So like why could I just and go? Because that's the trick. We just go fast and spin round.
You think why I can't do that?
He made him so like him know the game.
Oh. Me not play him. Can have the rules down pat.
Jump fast, yes. And you skip round. And you come down. When you come down, now you stop to the second to last back. You pick up. Then you turn around. Then you throw it in the second back. And so on. And keep going.
Okay.
And you go up.
Yes.
When you reach the double box, you have to throw it now one of the double box up there.
Then when you throw it now one of the double box, what happens now?
When you go by double box, you go one leg you can depend on the other side.
Oh.
Yeah.
So the key is never to jump in the box that have the man.
Yes. So you have to can balance like Karate Kid.
Mr. Miyagi. DT, you hear the detailed rules about hopscotch? That is what pharmacy man telling me.
When you throw your piece, you have to skill it so it just stay in the box and not go outside of it.
So what if it goes out the box?
If it roll out, then miss a turn.
Oh.
I have to go start over.
Anytime you're ready to play this, we are going to need to call you. And we don't have the number, so you better get through.
You make some nice little bag like a little bean bag like type thing. When you throw it like cloth, something wrap up in a cloth like blue. And you throw that, bounce all over the place. And go in.
But somebody tell me so you can use toilet tissue roll up.
All right.
As a man, so you don't roll.
And that means you just damp here.
What is this?
You see it. Because whenever you throw it way up at the top box, your aim have to go there.
Oh, so it has to get in the box. If not, you lose your turn.
Yes.
But this hopscotch is a serious game,
Because when you reach up there, when you stop sideways, you pick it up.
Yes.
You pick it up. Because now you have to go jump. When you reach the last box, and you throw it, and you're successful and get it in a one box.
Yes.
When you reach a one leg, you have to turn for now.
I'm getting fascinated with this.
You see, you turn for the one leg and then you balance and you bend down and pick up your thing.
Yes.
Without the other foot to touch the ground.
Fancy that.
And you keep going back down.
Boy, I did some mega play this a week about the SSL business. You mashed me up.
Young, that one of my favorite games, hopscotch. I don't know if you remember Jacks.
Man?
You remember Jacks?
Me have a Jack set from when Vicar come for me and DT play.
I used to love it. Mostly girls.
You can back on?
Bad with that, man.
And then when you back on, what you pick up first? You pick up ones or you go twos?
No, but if you back on everything, the piano and none drop off. You keep a back on.
Me know, but you have to drop off sometimes. So after it drop off, what you pick up? Ones.
Then you choke a ball and you pick up before it bounce and pick two. Next time when you throw it out, and you go and three till you pick up all of them one time.
But what the one when you pick up the one jacks out of everyone, that is a jacker? Because it's 7 pieces in the jacks, not true?
I think I 6 me use.
We used to use 7. So that when we go twos, when we throw 7, and we have to do twos, we have to pick up 1 with the finger.
One.
And then we go 3s.
And then go,
Right, so we pick up 1 with the finger, then we go 3s, then we go 4s and 2s, then we go 5s and 1s, then we go alls.
Okay. Yeah.
No, me not kill you with that pharmacy, man.
Well, no.
All your finger them arthritis must have take your finger them no.
Well, no, we ain't can no. Then the time my finger, the back of my finger could have been that.
No, you want double D40.
Yes. But, yeah, arthritis no bother me too much unless me eat my whole heap of tomato. Use cook with the whole of tomato paste. So I find outside tomato paste, I make them join them pain, so I stop.
Okay.
Enough people think they have arthritis, and arthritis are the tomato paste and thing when they cook with the tomato.
Oh.
Yeah.
But I'm glad to hear you say you still have the little thing.
And Chevy Chase, and them something there.
Chevy Chase.
Chevy Chase, anyway.
No about Chevy Chase.
But then game the teacher for big soldiers and things. So you have one post way up, so where one team up and the next one down, so you have to touch your base and come out, don't touch a man. If the man just come out of him base in fresh on you, so you have to go up there and capture you, and you stand up with your hand out to your people and come knock your hand and redeem you.
Oh, that's all like a
schoolyard game that.
Yes. It's all like almost dandy shandy.
Well, but bigger the boys, them you gotta play that.
Bigger boys.
But quick time now with this body thing, you know. You reason make people never go through everything, they might try to keep everything internal, then all the scandal. Financial, then we lose customer.
That the man.
You know, see.
No, crazy. Anyway, make we talk tomorrow again.
Alright,
take care.
Get you.
Yes, all right. 926-7615, last one for the day. Yes,
hi, Mrs. Shields,
Rick,
how are
so
you?
cool. Hi, not bad. You?
Good, I'm doing all right.
Who is this?
My name is Anne-Marie.
Welcome, Anne-Marie.
First time on the program.
Good to have you.
But Mrs. Shields, that lady, SSL, she played her hand. She stated all of the person's accounts that she went into.
If this thing is correct.
I'm thinking that it is correct. And based on all those letters that you wrote between her lawyer and SSL, she did not touch Usain Bolt's money.
No, his name is not mentioned.
His name is not mentioned, and based on the amount of money that she took, that she stated that she took.
Well,
there is no way
the correspondences that I read, why they had the disciplinary proceedings is because she overstated the account balance for one particular client who is not Usain. She falsified the statement to one client. Said that he had $10 million as at May 2022 when there was nothing like that. And that he had shares in JPS which would mature in July of 22 to the tune of $3 million when there was nothing like that.
Right, fine.
So,
another thing,
more to come, yes.
That JP, that claimed he put his stamp on the statement that she wrote.
Yes.
And he did not read it. What kind of rubbish is that?
No, man, that's quite appropriate. When
so he can stamp.
Absolutely. A JP's stamp and a JP's witnessing is a witness only of the signature. It is not authentication of the contents because the JP cannot say that he knows what he cannot know. I've got to go, Anne-Marie. Thank you for the call. God bless you. Anna K. leaving my producer. Fella, ciao. DT, have a great day, listeners. Come back tomorrow. I'm Emily Shields.